I was sitting in my small apartment in Seattle, in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, and outside the window, as always in March, a cold, endless rain was pouring down. The drops hammered against the glass so insistently, as if they wanted to break in and drown all my thoughts. It was around 11 at night. Emily was already asleep in the bedroom. I could hear her steady, calm breathing through the slightly open door. She lay curled up under our old plaid blanket, the one we bought together at a flea market in Portland 2 years ago. As usual, I was sprawled on the worn-out couch in the living room with my phone in my hands, mindlessly scrolling through Reddit. Nothing special, I just wanted to shut my brain off after a long day. Working at a small digital studio had completely drained me. Endless revisions to a website for yet another startup that would most likely go under in 6 months. Coffee no longer helped, and tomorrow there was another deadline for a full redesign. I went into r/relationship advice because sometimes you come across stories there that make you feel a little better. Like other people have it even worse and somehow they survive. And then I saw it. The post titled, "My wife cheated on me and it all started with one phone call from a friend to the bar. Don't read this if you don't want it to happen to you." It sounded like typical clickbait that I usually scrolled past, but something in the wording caught me. The author was Throwaway Broken Hubby 87. He wrote from the heart, raw, with mistakes, as if he were typing it right now through tears and couldn't wipe them away fast enough. Guys, I'm 29, I live in Seattle. It all started a week ago. My best friend called on Thursday evening and invited me to our favorite bar, the Green Door, to watch the game. I didn't want to go, I was tired after work, but I went anyway. And then, I only read the first 2 paragraphs. It was about how his friend at the bar suddenly mentioned that he had seen his wife with some guy downtown. The author had brushed it off at the time, but inside, something had already cracked, like thin ice underfoot. My phone beeped, 4% battery. I swore quietly so as not to wake Emily, plugged it into charge, and went to the bedroom. She turned in her sleep, wrapped her warm arm around my waist, and murmured in a sleepy voice, "Are you ever gonna turn off that damn phone, Alex? Come to bed already." I smiled in the darkness, kissed the top of her head, breathed in the familiar scent of her vanilla shampoo, and closed my eyes. Everything was fine. Just another ordinary evening. An ordinary life. The next day was Thursday. I was sitting in the open office in Belltown, finishing my 3rd Starbucks latte from the corner and trying to focus on Figma. The monitor screen flickered. My fingers moved across the trackpad, but my head was only replaying yesterday's edits. My phone vibrated on the desk. It was Mike, my best friend since school, the same one I moved to Seattle with after college in Boston. We'd been through everything together. First jobs, first broken hearts, first cockroach-infested apartments. "Hey, bro." His voice was as cheerful as always, despite the rain outside. "Lakers versus Warriors tonight. You in? Let's go to the Green Door after work. Beer, wings, like the good old days. Don't say no. I already reserved the spot at the bar." A chill ran down my spine. That exact bar, that exact Thursday, that exact game. I froze with the mouse in my hand, staring out the window at the gray streets where people were hurrying under umbrellas. Coincidence, I told myself firmly. Seattle is small, everyone goes to the same places, especially if you like sports and craft beer. I answered as calmly as I could. "Yeah, why not? I'll be there at 7. "Perfect. See you, dude. Don't be late like last time." All day I tried to push the thought away. It kept coming back like the relentless rain. Emily texted me, "Pick up milk on the way home. I'm working late today. I'm exhausted." Everything as usual. I arrived at the bar exactly at 7. Mike was already sitting at the counter, waving with a bottle in his hand. We hugged like guys do, ordered a pint of IPA each and a plate of spicy wings. The conversation started normally. Work, sports, how he'd argued with his girlfriend again because she spent too much time on TikTok. And then, when the game was in full swing and the bar was filled with shouts of fans, Mike suddenly grew serious, set down his glass, and looked me straight in the eyes. "Listen, Alex, a few days ago, I saw Emily downtown, on Pine Street, near that new French bakery cafe. She was with some guy. They were laughing, and he had his arm around her shoulders. Maybe a colleague, but it looked weird, not just friendly. I put my glass down on the counter so hard that beer splashed out. My ears started ringing, as if someone had struck a glass bell. It was almost word for word from the post. The same bar, the same call, the same words. I forced a laugh and made my voice sound steady. Come on, Mike. It was probably a work client. She's in marketing. She's always meeting people for business. Don't overthink it. But inside, everything was burning. I stayed until the end of the game, laughed at the jokes, but my thoughts were somewhere far away. Then I drove home through the pouring rain, the wipers barely keeping up. Emily met me with a smile. Dinner was on the table. Pasta with shrimp and garlic bread, her signature dish. She kissed me on the cheek and asked how my day was. I said fine, and spent the whole evening watching her, trying to find anything off in her eyes, in her movements, in the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. Nothing, just my paranoia. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up at 3 when Emily was sound asleep, hugging a pillow to her chest. I opened Reddit on my phone in the living room. The screen light cut through the darkness. The post was still there. I told myself, I'll just read the next part to make sure it's not about me. That's all. The second event in the post was this. The next day, I found a receipt from the cafe in her bag. She said she was with her friend Sarah, but the time and amount didn't add up. Plus, there were 2 coffees and some notes on a napkin. In the morning, Emily went to take a shower, humming something to herself. I quietly opened her bag on the kitchen table. In the side pocket was a receipt from that exact cafe on Pine Street. 2 lattes, 2 chocolate croissants, yesterday, 2:37 p.m. The day before, she had said she worked from home all day and only had yogurt with fruit for lunch. My hands were shaking when I put the receipt back. When she came out in a towel, I asked casually while pouring coffee, "How was your day yesterday, honey? Everything go as planned?" "Oh, just the usual, Alex. Sarah stopped by for half an hour. We sat and chatted about work. Nothing special." Sarah, the same friend they'd known since college. I nodded and smiled, but inside something finally broke. All day at work, I Googled Reddit posts that come true and real-life stories like in the movies. Nothing useful, just a couple of stories from r/no sleep that everyone calls fiction. I decided not to read the post any further. I completely deleted the app. Enough. These are just coincidences. Life isn't a movie. I won't let some internet stranger destroy what we have. Friday. I came home earlier than usual because I couldn't concentrate. Emily wasn't home yet. I sat on the couch and waited, staring at the rain outside the window. The thought kept spinning in my head. What if Mike is right? What if I'm just a blind idiot? My phone lay on the table, turned off. I turned it on only to check a client email, and I saw the notification. Reddit. How? I had deleted the app, but the browser had opened the bookmark of that post by itself. New update. Day 3. She started hiding her phone. When I asked who she was texting, she said work and left the room. Then I heard her whispering in the bathroom. I turned off the phone so sharply I almost cracked the screen. My heart was pounding so hard it thundered in my ears. Emily came home at 6, smiled, but immediately placed her phone face down on the nightstand. I asked casually while pouring coffee, "How was your day yesterday, honey? Everything go as planned?" "Oh, just the usual, Alex. Sarah stopped by for half an hour. We sat and chatted about work. Nothing special." Sarah, the same friend they'd known since college. I nodded and smiled, but inside something finally broke. All day at work, I Googled Reddit posts that come true and real-life stories like in the movies. Nothing useful, just a couple of stories from r/no sleep that everyone calls fiction. I decided not to read the posts any further. I completely deleted the app. Enough. These are just coincidences. Life isn't a movie. I won't let some internet stranger destroy what we have. Friday. I came home earlier than usual because I couldn't concentrate. Emily wasn't home yet. I sat on the couch and waited, staring at the rain outside the window. The thought kept spinning in my head. What if Mike is right? What if I'm just a blind idiot? My phone lay on the table, turned off. I turned it on only to check a client email, and I saw the notification. Read it. How? I had deleted the app, but the browser had opened the bookmark of that post by itself. New update, day 3. She started hiding her phone. When I asked who she was texting, she said work and left the room. Then I heard her whispering in the bathroom. I turned off the phone so sharply I almost cracked the screen. My heart was pounding so hard it thundered in my ears. Emily came home at 6, smiled, but immediately placed her phone face down on the nightstand. I asked, trying to keep my voice from shaking, "Who were you texting all day, Em? You seem distracted." "Work, Alex. New client. Some nervous guy from California. Why are you so suspicious today?" She went out on the balcony to smoke, even though she had quit 3 months ago, when we decided together that we'd had enough. I sat and watched her back through the glass. Rain drummed on the balcony roof. I felt reality slowly, like an old film on celluloid, starting to repeat every word from that damn post. This was no longer a coincidence. It was as if someone was writing my life according to a ready-made script, and I couldn't break free. Saturday. We drove to Discovery Park, as we did every weekend when the weather allowed. Emily took my hand, but her fingers were cold despite the warm sweater. We walked along the trails. It smelled of wet earth, pine, and salty wind from the bay. I tried to talk about ordinary things, about how we'd go to Portland for the Rose Festival in the summer as we always planned, about new recipes she wanted to try. She nodded, smiled, but her gaze was somewhere far away, beyond the trees. I remembered how we met 3 years ago at a concert at the Crocodile. She had spilled coffee on my jacket and laughed so infectiously that I fell in love right away. That evening at home, I couldn't hold back. While she was in the bathroom, I opened the browser and went to the post. I couldn't stop anymore. The 4th event. I found the hotel in her search history for next week. She said it was for a corporate team building event, but I checked. There was no team building, just 2 people in a room with a water view. I opened her laptop. The browser history had been cleared, but in the trash, a deleted file. A reservation for a room at the Edgewater Hotel on Wednesday for 2 people. I closed the laptop and sat on the kitchen floor, leaning my back against the refrigerator. Tears came on their own, not from anger, from the realization that this was no longer a coincidence. It was as if Reddit had become my fate, and I had opened the door myself. On Monday, I called Mike and told him everything. We met at a small coffee shop near my office that smelled of fresh pastries and wet clothes. He listened, frowning, turning his cappuccino cup in his hands, then said quietly, "Bro, this sounds like paranoia, but if you want, I can help you keep an eye on things, just so you can calm down. We've always had each other's backs." I refused, but inside I already knew I would do the watching myself. Every day I checked her phone while she slept. Every evening I looked at her and thought, who are you now? Work was a struggle. My colleagues noticed I wasn't myself, but I brushed it off with jokes. The rain never stopped for a single day. It felt like Seattle was feeding my depression. Wednesday, the day of the hotel. I took the day off, telling Emily I had an emergency dental cleaning. I parked across the street from the Edgewater, in the shadow of a tall building. The rain was pouring buckets, the wipers working at full speed. At 2:10 p.m., I saw her. She got out of a taxi in the same black dress I had given her for our anniversary. She was with a guy, tall, wearing an expensive gray coat with a neat beard. Ryan, her colleague she had mentioned a couple of times over dinner. They hugged at the entrance and kissed, not in a friendly way, long and passionately. I sat in the car, unable to move. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I didn't get out. I just watched them walk inside, laughing. Then I drove home, bought a bottle of whiskey at the corner store, and sat waiting in the dark. When Emily returned at 10 in the evening, I was sitting in the kitchen with an empty glass. She walked in, smiled tiredly, and set down her bag. "Hi, honey. How was the dentist? Everything okay?" I looked her in the eyes and said quietly, but firmly, "I know about Edgewater, about Ryan, about everything. I saw you today." She froze in the middle of the kitchen, then her face changed. There were no tears, no shouting, only cold surprise and exhaustion. "You were following me? Seriously, Alex? After everything we've been through?" "That doesn't matter. Tell me the truth. How long has this been going on?" She sat down across from me and took off her wet coat. And she told me everything. It started 3 months ago at the corporate party. Ryan was the new marketing director. Smart, attentive, always knew what to say. It was just talking at first. Then we had a drink after work once. "I didn't want this, Alex. I love you. But with you, everything became routine. Rain, work, the couch." She spoke, and I heard only the sound of the rain outside the window and the beating of my own heart. In my head, that Reddit post kept spinning. I knew what would come next. She would say she loved me but couldn't live like this anymore, and she would ask for time. She said exactly that, word for word. I went to stay with Mike for a week. I sat on his couch in his Fremont apartment, drank beer, and refreshed Reddit every 5 minutes. The post had disappeared completely. No trace, not even in my search history. I wrote to support, deleted at the author's request. Mike tried to distract me, took me to bars, made me play PlayStation until morning, and told old college stories. But every night I woke up in a cold sweat. It felt like if I opened my phone right now, the post would be waiting for me with a new update. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I created a new account and wrote my own post. I described everything, from Mike's first call to the hotel. I hit publish and immediately received a notification. "Your post has been removed by moderators for violating the rules." I laid down on the couch and closed my eyes. One thought kept spinning in my head. What if that guy, throwaway broken hubby 87, had once read someone else's post too? And now the wheel was simply turning, passing from one guy to the next. Emily texted me after 10 days. "Let's talk. I want to fix everything. I miss you." I came home. The apartment was clean. She had cooked my favorite steak with potatoes and salad. We talked until morning. She cried, and so did I. She said she had ended things with Ryan for good, that it was a mistake, that she only loved me and was ready to go to therapy together. I wanted to believe her. I really did. We even hugged and fell asleep together, like before. But when she went to take a shower in the morning, I took her phone. The last message from Ryan. "When are you going to tell him the truth? I'm waiting. We had an agreement." I put the phone back. I walked out onto the balcony. The rain was still pouring. I took out my phone, opened Reddit, and started writing a new post. This very one you're reading right now. Because I understood one thing. The post wasn't coming true because I read it. I read it because it was already coming true. And now I'm the guy writing the warning for the next one. Don't read posts about cheating, guys, especially if they mention the bar The Green Door in Seattle. Especially if your best friend calls on a Thursday. Especially if your wife's name is Emily. I turned off the phone, went back inside the apartment, and hugged her. She smiled through her tears. "Everything will be okay, right?" I nodded. Of course. But inside, I already knew that the next post was already being written. Somewhere out there in a parallel Reddit thread. And the next guy is sitting on a couch in Seattle right now, reading my post and feeling chills run down his spine. Because the story never ends. It's just waiting for the next reader. And the rain outside the window never stops.